Hi, Tasneem. I think I'm unable to share my screen.
Just hold on. Mira is
Thank you.
busy sharing a screen. I'll tell her to stop sharing a screen and then it'll allow you to do
Okay,
it.
fantastic. Thank you so much.
There we go. Try now.
Yeah. Host disabled, attendee
Okay.
screen sharing.
It should work. Try again, please, Elle.
Okay, there we go. Thank you so much. Let me just pull up my screen here, my presentation. How's that? Can everyone see my presentation?
Perfect.
Okay, lovely stuff. Okay, Tasneem, thank you for having me and thank you for that beautiful introduction. Okay, so yeah, I'll be speaking into a very burning issue within our communities, particularly within high-risk communities on the Cape Flats and township areas in South Africa. Healing of men and boys. And we all know that hurting people hurt people. So let me get into it. I'll open up my presentation by sharing this quote. It is easier to build strong children than to repair broken men. So I live by this phrase, you cannot give a child back their childhood. And you cannot undo trauma once experienced. And you can only alleviate the harm. Or I will just allow me please just to share with you my story and to share when the seed of utility was planted in my life. I was 9 years old and I grew up in a council flat similar to this one on my first slide. I grew up in a council flat, a 2-bedroom flat. And I despised Friday evenings. I despised Friday evenings simply because of the fact that my parents were supporting a habit. My father, a drug addict, my mother, a raging alcoholic. And one evening, I was 9 years old. I sat in a corner in my room, in the council flat, with both hands around my knees. And I was crying because in the next room, as you know, if you stay in the council flat, the halls are so thin, you can basically hear leak out of the tap. So in the next room, my parents was in a violent brawl because my mother was drunk, my father was high on drugs. And I could hear body parts knocking against the room next door, and I was crying. And next thing led to another, my mother rushed into my room and she ran up to me in the corner and she looked down at me and I looked up at her and she shouted, I hate you. You know what? You remind me of your father. And I couldn't understand why my first love would tell me that. I couldn't make sense of my environment at the time because I was 9 years old. I was waiting to be molded by my parents. And having heard that from my first love broke me. My mother exits my room, and next thing I hear my father shouting from the next room, that is not my son. That evening, that day, 9 years old, I've never been the same again. And through my teenage years into adulthood, I was basically broken. And it was challenging for me to unlearn my negative conditioning and relearn a new paradigm for my life, because I could find nobody that could add positive value to my advancement in life. So, who is Earl Mentor? I've had to transition from self-hate to self-love in my life. I left my childhood home at 9 years of age. I've mentioned that at 9 years, the transformation happened in my life. Searching for life, for love in my life. I was raised by my grandma. My mother, as I've mentioned, a battling alcoholic. My father, at the time, a drug addict. My brother, that's 3 years older than me, he's a gangster. My eldest brother is 6 years older than me. He's battling depression. And my parents were divorced since 1994, but still live in our childhood home. I ran away from home at the age of 13 to roam the streets of Cape Town, CBD, for an entire year. I came home because I missed my family. I came home to visit on the weekend, and I was never missed. My families at the time lived constrained lives. I'm a reformed gangster and a recovering drug addict. I tried to commit suicide thrice, but failed miserably. I'm here, still alive and kicking. And lastly, I have tattoos all over my body to hide the deep cuts inflicted upon myself growing up with deep emotional trauma. So why am I telling you all this? You know, my parents raised me the best way they knew how. And raising me with the trauma that they've endured in their lives was untold trauma and untouched hurt. Because I know the vast majority of young boys and men in our society are taught that grown men don't cry, that you need to grin and bear. And the vast majority of our boys and men in our society are doing the hurting. The vast majority of our young boys and men are hurting people because they have chosen to carry the burdens and baggage of their parents. And therefore, it's kind of challenging for them to look through their own baggage. And therefore, they perpetuate the cycle of trauma in their lives and in our society. So taking on board my parents' trauma was extremely hard for me, because that mentality, the ability of doing things in my life, spilled over into my relationships. Because I was hurting and I went out to hurt others. My conditioning was entrenched so deep, I was unable to realize my worth and value until I decided I would take 100% responsibility for my life and for my choices, and I refused to carry the burden of my parents. I wanted to be the change I wanted to see. And the transformation happened when my best friend was killed in front of me. And that bullet was meant for me. And that's one of the transformations in my life, where I decided enough is enough. Let me start looking at sensible ways to be more, to live more, and to do more in order to bring positive change in my life and the life of others. And by doing so, let me share my narrative in order to inspire others to do the same. Because we need to share our stories. We need to share what we've been through in order to engage people. Because you never know who you will inspire along the way. My transformation, it was always me versus I. Because the noise in my head got so louder that I was challenged to manage my emotions effectively. Because the noises got so loud in my head, I've looked for an outlet, and that outlet was drugs and seeking a sense of belonging for my life. And automatically, unconsciously, I found myself associated with hurting men because I was hurting. Then I decided to heal, because every day is an opportunity for us to be the best versions of ourselves. Most importantly for men in our society. Because our institutions, based on my experience, and this is only my frame of reference, being actively involved in the personal and social development industry for the past 18 years, observing the make and break of boys and men in our society, that we refuse to heal. So now I have an opportunity just to share my narrative in books. I've self-published 3 books just based on my story and how we can find sensible ways and solutions in order to heal men in our society. So my 2 companies are fortunate enough to amplify the work and legacy of 14 Nobel Peace Laureates who pass on the skills, the wisdom, and their spirit they embody in order to mentor young adults who wants to be the change they want to see in their lives. So that's my 3 books. And I've been traveling all over the world simply because I choose to heal. And I choose to share my story. And I've been in different spaces just observing. Once we realize our power as boys and men, we have an opportunity to transform society for the better. So my company facilitates compassion and empathy and community inclusion in order to break down cultural barriers and show solidarity. So that's me. Very short presentation. That's my story. And I will say thank you for listening.
Yeah, I give you a round of applause. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
That was your story. I think your story is an extremely powerful one, and I think everybody's just like, wow. There's a couple of questions. I've also got a lot of questions for you, but I'll let other people talk first. So from Luazi, there's a question, how does one deal with relapsing, or how does one help those who want to change but relapse?
Good question. You cannot carry somebody with a broken back, right? Once you decide to heal, you will understand the next person's pain, and that we call compassion and empathy. So when somebody relapses, that person You know, the negative labels that we've been bombarded with almost most of our lives, when to go sit somewhere. And therefore, we are negatively triggered by people, by places, and things. And once we are negatively triggered, we are reminded about our past, about that negative labels we've been bombarded with. And therefore, we cannot manage, we find it difficult to manage that emotions. And emotions can be powerful. So helping the person that have relapse, you need to heal first. And I hope that answered that question. Because we need to come to terms with our past, because our past is our burden. I hope that answered the question.
I think also on that point of our past, being from Simonstown Museum, and Simonstown's history and connection with Ocean View, there is a lot of intergenerational trauma that has been passed down, and sometimes the kind of experiences and challenges that young people are facing today are not always acknowledged. That today it's a different kind of challenge than what people had previously. So there's a lot of tension between generations and people's difficulty in speaking about what has happened to them. So I'm thinking, like, in terms of what you're saying about choosing to forgive. I mean, that's a difficult task. So maybe if you could talk a little bit more on that subject, that process of forgiveness, because I know a lot of people struggle with letting it go, So how?
Good question. Good question, Tasneem. Forgiveness, powerful. Our minds and time is inseparable. Our minds and time is inseparable. It's like the mind is married to time, because our mind always drifts back to the past and what had happened to us, right? And that feelings of anger, despair, worry start clouding our judgment. And our mind is just basically, it is a love being in the past. And because unconsciously we took on board what we've observed and what we have endured in our life, it went to go sit, and it's in compartments. And we bring out that compartments whenever we are triggered by events in our life. Right? Makes sense? And that compartment is stored because we choose to store it in our memory. Because of our strong emotions based on our negative conditioning, we find it difficult to forgive. Because it's a kind of a theater barrier. It's hard to break through. But once we break through the theater barrier and forgive those who had hurt us, the universe conspires to give us exactly what we want in life. And we become better versions of ourselves. We become powerful. We become light. So I hope that answers your question.
I'm just going to go to the chat and just check some of the comments. So, Ntandokos, I'm slaughtering your name now, Ntandokazi, has said, I'm blown away because I'm in the process of healing too. I have no words. All I can say is I'm proud. Mira has said, thank you all. This was very inspiring. And Disa says, this is powerful. And then just another comment. Or question, do you have any advice for young learners being pressured into drugs and gangs, and how does one get away from that?
No, we are, social media also plays a major role in terms of social comparison and finding a sense of belonging. I can only speak about my experience. I've had to search a sense of belonging for my life outside my home because there was no love in my home, right? I've been searching love almost most of my teenage and adult years. and why people are attracted to gangs and pressured by peers in their circle of influence is because they relate the same based on what they've been through. And sometimes it's hard for parents today to relate to their kids' hurt and pain because that conversations almost never arise in our household. We can tell our stories amongst our peers and share our stories there because now they can relate the same. So why people join gangs, right? Is to find the power they never had, to show their worth, to show their value, to show their dedication to a set group, because they've been told that grown men don't cry. Now they need to show a form of protection. They need to a sense of worth, a sense of loyalty to their peers. And there's where we get shifted in a very bad way. And how we can basically engage young adults that are being recruited in these gangs in our societies when we show them a different way. Because our schools, our institutions are not teaching our kids about their worth and value. Until we can tell a boy that he's brilliant, that he's remarkable, that he can be and do whatever you want to in order to help inspire others to do the same, we would positively impact that person, and that person will start realizing their worth and value and stand in their power. I hope that answered the question.
I think it does. So just going back to the comments from Kathy, congratulations on all you achieved and overcome, Earl. It's truly remarkable and gives hope to so many young people in our community. Luazi says, yes, thanks, Earl. Zuko says, I wish every male can hear your story. It's really inspiring. And on that note, through your talk, Ntandokazi was inspired by your talk and has written a poem and would like to perform it live if you don't mind. So maybe, sure. Ntando, if you can, Mira. Hello.
Yes.
Hello.
You should be here.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, she's ready.
I hope everyone can hear me. As Mira has said, or as the Mira has said, and the mentoring peace builder has said, I'm going to share a poem. Can everyone hear me first?
Yes, we can.
Okay. The poem reads as follows. I was only 5. I was only 5 years old. Didn't know much, didn't feel much, and haven't even experienced much. All I wanted was to go to school, be a doctor, because at the time we chose a career we knew would pay us $500, 1,000 cash. To us, there was money. To us, it was a lot of money. When Dad looked at me, he saw a kid, a daughter, a child. But when he looked at me, he became aroused. His manhood felt something. His eyes longed for me, a 5-year-old child. He never cared about my feelings, let alone my pride. He forced himself. He broke the biscuit, a 5-year-old biscuit. I thought virginity is pride, what all girls have in common, what every girl needs to embrace. I still remember how my eyes swelled into quiet pools of tears as numbness invaded my body. I knew they wanted to help. I wiped them off. I was trying to protect them so he wouldn't rape them too. They had a corrugated zinc roof, the bed fence to the left, a window on top of our heads. Wanted to cry out loud, but no one would care, because children cry every now and then. It was a norm. I didn't know where I got this confidence. Guess I was born with it. Because he raped and broke the one I tried building. I became this fearful soul, because they say the best way to generate hatred is to first introduce fear. He made me fearful. I don't blame my dad when he placed his leather belt whenever I refused to go to school, because he never knew what happened the day he dropped me off very early at the preschool principal's house. He doesn't know what the principal's daughter did to me. The principal's son did to me, sorry. All he ever wanted was for me to have a brighter future. Until one day, October 2018, I got the courage and spoke out. Unfortunately, nothing could be done. Mom blamed me for not speaking out. Dad saluted me for keeping such. I don't blame him though. Maybe this is what made him feel alive. Maybe he got pleasure from seeing other people suffer. I love him. Wish I was selfish as him. He considered his wants. I don't want him arrested, neither killed, nor poisoned. I want him to set my heart free. I want him to know that I know what he did 11 years back, because I was only 5 years old when I lost my pride. Thank you.
Powerful, powerful.
Very powerful.
Such a beautiful poem.
Thank you very much, Ntando Nkosi, for sharing that. That is very brave of you, and I think we all really appreciate that, sharing your story with us. Because that obviously took a lot of courage and confidence to share that. So, yeah, thank you very much. Is there anything you want to add to that? Oh,
No, that's been extremely powerful. I think I've been moved. You know, it's always important just to share a narrative. I've started out writing my poems, you know, my pen on paper, until I found my power to stand on stage and share my narrative without fail. So it starts there.
So I just want to read some more comments from the chat. Lwazi says, it's very true. Not all males get this opportunity, especially since they are not encouraged to express their emotions, which is again what you were touching on, and very important, that often boys and men are forgotten in this conversation as also being hurt. Let's see, Abuzwa, I love that you're touching on the fact that you took us through your childhood. Many tend to assume men just wake up and decide to be violent, not taking into account many of us also contribute in their actions. Yeah. And then there's a question from Anya. Is there any advice or simple steps that young men and boys can take and women can take to create a better, less violent society?
If you believe you're wanting to make the change in your community, start a movement. Be the change you want to see. Start a movement. Allow people to aspire to be you. And in the event, you expand your circle of influence. So turn your passion into profit for your life. Profit, I don't mean monetary value. Profit in terms of value for your life. Turn your passion into an organization or a movement in order to inspire others to do the same.
That's another question. Thank you. You refer to being a crucial part of our identity and how it can build someone in many different ways. What can the new generation of parents teach young men to groom them to be better and more emotionally connected men? Be empathetic, think critically, and be mindful.
Cool. Can you just repeat that question so want to make sense of it?
Okay, so it's you refer to home being a crucial part of our identity and how it can build someone in many different ways. What can the new generation of parents teach young men to groom them to be better and more emotionally connected men, as in being empathetic, compassionate, and so on?
That's a good question. You know, we're overwhelmed with the issue of teenage pregnancy in our society. Teenagers that haven't basically come to terms with what they've been through. So the new age parents in today's society need to start unlearning their negative conditioning by allowing boys to cry, to be, and to be present in the life, particularly boys in our society, to be present and show up in the lives of our boys, whether it be a next door neighbor. Because good fences make good neighbors. Until we can lock arms as parents, especially young parents that are dealing with overwhelming issues in their life, need to lock arms, need to unite in order for them to find practical and sensible ways to raise young boys to become better men in our society. So
Thank you
that's the
very
only
much.
advice I can give you based on my experience and observation.
Thank you very much, El. I think there's a lot more comments. There's a lot of questions, but you can reach out to El on his Instagram, his Facebook. I put it on the chat. We have very limited time. So I think from all of us, we are really grateful that we had this opportunity to have you speak about your topic and open up a whole different kind of conversation. So now I'm going to hand over to Helene. So maybe you can just I'll give you a virtual hand clap over there from all of us. So thank you very much, El,
Thank you so much.
taking the time
No worries.
today.
Right, thank you.
Thank you so much. It was really powerful, and also the poem and the reactions from Thandukazi. I think you really spoke to us and gave us a message. We're now going to have another short film made by Misha from Porterville. It's in the West Coast District Municipality, and it's called Whip.
Helen, maybe we should also log out again because we only have 6 minutes on this call.
Okay, good. We can do that. So we give everybody 5 minutes again to log out and come in back. Thank you.